conversations with wedding professionals as they share their stories, insights, and tips from inside the wedding industry. We'll chat about how to be authentic and that it's okay not to be perfect or run your business like someone else's Instagram. Let's dive into the privilege it is to serve our clients and discover the talented creatives that make up our community. When we share what we know and who we are, we better serve our couples as a wedding day team, as well as each other. Simply put, Be Fabbo. Now here's your host, BobbiBrinkman.
Hey listeners, welcome back to the podcast. Super excited that on this National Wedding Planning Day, we have a wonderful Coastal Georgia wedding planner with us. And she's going to talk to us a little bit today about her passion of being in the wedding industry, why and the importance behind every couple, especially in the destination market, should have a wedding planner, and just some of the things that call her to do this. I mean, she's a wonderful person at heart. I'm super excited that I get to work with her for the first time later on this year in September. And I've become a quick fan of hers, just following her. She has a wonderful website. It's a little bit updated. It's new. It's fresh. I think brides and grooms from all over are going to really love and fall in love with her just off the website. So I can't wait for you all to listen and hear what she has to say. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So
I'm excited to be here.
Exactly. I mean, it's National Wedding Planning Day. So how appropriate that we have you. So tell our listeners who you are, the name of your company. I kind of did that in an interview, but I always like for listeners to hear it coming from your voice. So tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got started in the wedding industry.
Yeah, I'm Anna Swanson, and I own Rustic to Ritz events here in Savannah. And we service brides from Jacksonville to Charleston, and so all up and down Georgia's coast. And I've been in the wedding industry almost a decade, which is crazy to me. But
which in wedding years is 20 years, right? A decade in the wedding industry is 20 years in normal life.
True. But when I was in college, I was actually a recreation major, and most everybody in my program kind of wanted to do like YMCA director, Parks and Rec director, things like that. But I love hospitality. I absolutely love the hospitality industry. And so I wanted to go into resorts and do resort recreation. And it didn't take me long to figure out that if you want to move up in resorts, then you need to be in sales.
Yep.
Because resorts have recreation departments, but every hotel pretty much has a sales department, so you can bounce around and move up quicker. And on the back burner, my plan B was always to do weddings. I'm super OCD and organized, and I just am a people person. And so I always asked to shadow weddings that were going on the property if I wasn't working in other departments. And so it just became something that I was naturally inclined to and passionate about. And here we are. So,
well, and I want the listeners to know that, that you are literally a born and raised Georgia girl. So, you can really talk about being from the South, and you probably work. Do you work in your company, do weddings all over Georgia, or do you kind of just stay here in the coastal area?
Pretty much in the coastal area, but my husband and I are both from Atlanta, the north side of Atlanta, and so every bit of our family's in North Georgia. So if I get a call for an Atlanta wedding or a North Georgia, somewhere up in the mountains, then I absolutely would be happy to take that on.
Well, yeah, I think that's a great thing too, that, when you come down, not only do you get somebody that is legitly Georgia, but you get a real Georgia girl at heart. And I'm sure a lot of your brides really appreciate that. So how long did it take you to leave the resort hospitality and start your own business?
Yeah, so my husband and I actually moved to Savannah about 8 years ago as newlyweds. And we had just gotten married ourselves. So I had not only gone through the wedding, had several brides that year that I was planning, but then I was planning my own. So I was getting into weddings and like kind of seeing two different perspectives when I started. And so when we moved to Savannah, there was a venue here that was looking for somebody who had a background in hospitality, that had a passion for weddings, and they wanted to become a wedding venue.
Cool.
And they weren't really. They only did a couple a year. And so I stepped into that role and became a wedding sales manager for them when they never had one before. And 3 years later, we were doing weddings every week, plus usually a rehearsal dinner almost every other week. So it was a big moneymaker for them. And I loved it because I was given room, to be creative and to make my own packages and build my own menus. And, and I was pretty new in the industry at that time. So I loved having that amount of just, just space to kind of do my own thing.
Right.
And about 3 years into being with that venue, we started to grow our family, and we had a toddler and a baby on the way. And I said, I'm doing weddings every weekend,
right?
And I have little kids at home that now I'm having to juggle childcare. And so I said, I can do weddings every weekend from home. And so in 2015, then I said, I'm just going to start doing my own thing. And it's just taken off since then.
Well, I think that's great. I think that's good for the listeners to understand that you didn't just plan your own wedding and go, oh my gosh, I can do this. You actually went out, hands-on, practical experience. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of wedding planners, and I'm going to say photographers, do as well. They think because they did it one time that they can do this for a living. And I always remind them, you guys are doing this for somebody else. I mean, there's a lot of logistics and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Why do you want to risk that for yourself? Or pull a wedding, a poor couple in and fail to deliver. So, I love the fact that you shared that you went in and, got dirty and did all the stuff. And I'm sure that area, that venue misses you terribly because I'm sure, I'm sure they saw sales go down quite a bit when you left there. So no, I think that's wonderful. And in doing so, what is the part of the wedding planning process that you really think separates you? And maybe it's because of the experience that you had there, but for Rustic to Ritz, what is the thing that you can say to listeners and to other couples? This is what sets me apart from other planners or coordinators.
Yeah, I really think it has a lot to do with the Southern hospitality. Me being such a people person, I love everyone, and I'm here to service you as the client. The last thing you want me to do is to tell you my opinion and how my wedding went, because it's not about me. And so, every single wedding is different. Every bride is different. And I just love starting at the very beginning. I love sales. So when I get that first inquiry, then I just want to know all about you. I want to know what would be your ideal wedding day. What do you not want your wedding to be like?
Good question.
And so that really helps me to know, kind of narrow the gaze of what vendors would actually be good for you and what vendors do not shoot in the style that you like, or don't do floral in the style that you like, or, and so that really helps me. And so just that starting point of getting to know them. I love when people say, I've never been to Savannah and I want to bring my wedding there, because I get to literally be their tour guide and show them all around town. And I'm doing that this weekend with a bride coming in from Kansas, and we're going to tour venues and meet vendors for 3 straight days. And I'm super excited.
Well, see, that is because you get to be a tourist in your own hometown, and that's what's great. So let's talk a little bit about that. How are couples finding you? And then once they find you, what is the process to become a Rustic to Ritz bride?
Yeah. So when I first started out, I really didn't have money set aside for marketing. It was just word of mouth. People who knew me or past brides referred me. And last year, I really said, if I'm going to do this thing and really build this like a business needs to be built, and eventually have a team one day, then I need to start setting aside money towards marketing and have an allotment for that. And so last year was the first year that I really started marketing on the Knot. And from 2018 to 2019, we've seen a 266% increase in sales. And so now I'm to the point where we're going to have to start building a team, which is really exciting, but nervous. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But once brides reach out, then I send them a questionnaire, and if they can hop on a phone call or we can Zoom like this and just chat about their wedding day, and see if I would be a right fit for them. Right. Then I'll go ahead, and if they say they want to move forward, then I'll send them a contract, and we just go from there.
And how often, and when you're meeting with these couples, especially online, have you, you've been doing this for a while now. So are there times that you can just tell by the conversation that you probably are not a right fit, and out of respect will direct that couple to someone else?
Yeah, and sometimes it's based on maybe not necessarily like a personality fit, but maybe it's just what they're needing or what they require.
Right.
I had a bride last fall that she really needed a lot of help, and I had just booked so many full service brides that I really couldn't take on another full service bride right at that time. And she was pretty immature in her thinking of price too, and her budget was just, it was just not going to work. And I was just honest with her, and I said, I really don't have the time right now to invest in your wedding what needs to be invested there, and I want to pass you off to another planner that I would recommend here in the Savannah area. And I did that because I didn't have the time to invest in her and searching for vendors that would fit in an unrealistic budget.
Right. And see, I go back to all the time, we have to educate our couples. And so the couples that are listening, you hear me say it every podcast. If you're honest with us and you give us the right question and you give us a realistic budget or timeline, we can help you. And one of the things about planners are, if they would start with you, well, I'd love to be called, and trust me, I'm very blessed to get called before some vendors, venues, and even you guys. It's very hard for me to be the first vendor hired. Flattering, but hard in the wedding day team process. So when they come to you and they say to you, hey man, I'm going to get married at XYZ and I have a $5,000 budget, you can immediately decide that's unrealistic, and then you can guide them. And so tell us a little bit about how you view full service planning, day of coordination, and kind of how do you like one over the other? And I'll be honest with you, do you think there's a place for both of those in the industry?
I definitely think there's a place for both of them, because you do have those DIY brides out there that really are very crafty and are very talented and skilled in organizing events. Maybe they do fundraisers and events like in their own career choice. Right. So some of them kind of have the know-how and they really don't need me to do some of the planning. And so there definitely is a place for day of. But if you have no background in planning events or fundraisers or anything like that, and you don't volunteer for any organizations and help on that end, then you really do need kind of a full service person, especially if it's a destination and you don't even know the town. So when I first got started, I liked the day of because it was easy. I just showed up and I was just the contact person. You hand me all the vendors and their contact information and your timeline you put together, and I just make it happen. But man, you guys
work really, really hard when you're a day of and you do not get props. That's one of the reasons I love you all when you show up, but you guys are one of the hardest working wedding day team members. And you end up coming up with some creations. And so in my point of view, I just always feel like you guys aren't getting proper credit or the praise for all the hard work that you do, because if you weren't there on that day, it wouldn't happen. And I think to myself, do couples really not see the value of, if you would have had you the entire time, imagine what this day could have been?
Yeah. And that's spot on, because most of the time, if I get a review, the reviews I get from brides are my full service brides. And I have a hard time getting reviews from day of because we only work together for a short amount of time. But then my full service brides, by the time they book and we move the whole process together, and then they're married and I'm walking them to the pedicab at the end of the night to take them to their hotel, then, they hug me and they're like, I never would have gotten here. I never could have done that without you.
Exactly. Yeah. And the vendors, and we're the same way, because I'm going to be honest again, and the photographers that are listening, when you don't have you there, without a doubt, I now become the wedding planner, because I'm the one that is there the longest. I have to get the makeup people rolling, and then the whole day. And then even when I bring somebody along, and sometimes there's weddings, again, go back to budget a little bit, we'll talk a little bit later, that as much as I would love to have somebody else come along, you do not have that in your budget. And for me, it's more a priority that your guests eat than having another photographer standing around really doing nothing because you don't have anything planned anyway. And even though we're going to take candid photos and moments, you still have to some flow and organization. So without you guys, we become the planners, and then we can't do what we do. And I'll be honest and say that I work 9 to 5. I work 10 to 7. I work 24 hours a day on my business, Monday through Friday. the last thing I want to do on a Saturday is work again, doing all that. I want to be the photographer that I waited all week to be without having to worry about answering the phone or talking to somebody. I have to always, we know that everybody, the guests are potential clients, but without you guys, it's just impossible. So what's the ratio for your company for full day and day of?
Now, this year, I would say probably 65% of mine are full service.
Testament to how good you are. Testament to how good you are. Exactly. So when you bring on this team, is that your kind of like your plan as you expand? Do you think the team people are going to be the ones that do more a day of, and you're going to still more do the full, where I think you're really good at that, but I think you can do both things. But is that your goal, is to have the team do that?
I think so. I never really envisioned having a wedding planning firm necessarily, and a team of us. My goal was, by the time my kids are, because they're all little now, they're preschool, toddler, kindergarten age. And so when they get into middle school, my goal was always to have a venue. I always wanted to own a venue, us live on the property. So I never really anticipated my planning business blowing up like this. And so I probably will do that, is let them take on the day of, and then me continue to do the full service. But I also want them to be able to meet all the vendors that I know and get to know them like I know them. And that's the hard part about growing a business, is having staff basically replicate you, because so much of who you are is your own personality. And how do you find people that you work really well with, that your brides are going to love, that you can trust, and so I'm in that kind of awkward stage right now.
and that's with any business, is because it is us. I mean, even though your name is not on your business, it's still your name because you're the business. And even your fellow people like me, I mean, I get to know how you work and what you do. I expect anybody you send along to still be themselves, but to still follow the ABC of Rustic to Ritz, how policies and how you work. So I think that part, but I also want to say, every venue that I know that started with a wedding planner is they're the most successful venues around. It's because you're doing it just like you built your wedding planning business. You went out there and did the grunt work and got your hands dirty. And so you know what it takes to make a venue successful and how to have all the moving parts. So, I have no doubt in my mind that you will have that venue one day. So how far in advance are you booking? How far in advance are couples seeking you out? And how, if I'm getting married in 2020, do I need to be calling you today?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Because I am seeing that length of time grow. The longer I'm in the business, the farther out brides are booking me. And so I was completely booked up for fall 2019 last summer. Summer 2018. So, I'm no longer booking brides like 9 months out. We're starting to book closer to 16 months out for big destination weddings. Now, those smaller destination weddings of about 50 people, sometimes I might have an open weekend and I could take those 6 or 7 months in advance. But it's usually not less than 6 months in advance that I'll fill an empty weekend. And I don't have many empty weekends in the year. Right.
And have you seen that trend change in the last couple of years? Because like with us, I've always been a 2-year out booker. I mean, people have always booked me 2 years in advance. I saw last year that we were getting I got 2 calls today for something for this year, for like April of this year, like this soon.
Oh, wow.
I have seen a shift a little bit. And I'm not talking a small elopement. I'm talking they're having 100, 150 people at a well-known venue in Savannah that just happens to be open on that Saturday. So I ask of the pros in our coastal area, and it's 50-50. Some of the DJs are saying they're getting, hey man, people are calling us 3 months out. Some other planners, some other florists, they're going, oh no, nobody's calling me for 2 years. So I think for 2019 and 2020, we're going to see a good mix. I think Savannah is a market, and it's growing so fast and so popular that we're going to start seeing a lot. I have 3 Thursday weddings this year that are full-blown Thursday weddings. And so
I've had some weekdays too, and I don't typically do weekdays. So.
And I think it's because of the market. And I think it's because, hey, look, I want to get married. It's a destination. And think about it. Come on a Thursday and all your guests can really have a Friday, Saturday, and go home on Sunday. Why not? And so are you also finding that it's really, really about the experience for the guest? I'm finding that there's couples that are doing 3 days, which is another reason why we have to have people like you, because they want to come down here and offer their guests 3 days of fun, packed, filled events. So are you seeing that trend too?
Yeah, I am. And I'm seeing a lot of people, like, say, booking beach houses. They're coming into it in 3 days in advance or so, booking a beach house, and then they still don't check into the wedding block until Friday.
Right.
But they've been in town half the week already. And that goes for after the wedding too, post that they would stay several more days and make a vacation out of it. And I've got brides booking their ceremony real early in the day, and then still say, 1:30, say ceremony, and then their reception's still not until nighttime, which I thought was kind of strange, and it makes it difficult for you guys, for photographers, to have a real long day like that. But it's because they want to say, we still want plenty of picture time, but we want our guests to be able to go and do a trolley tour and stop at this place and have cocktails and then get back on and go to this place and we'll meet them later. And it's like a full day shindig now, Exactly. So I'm definitely seeing more of the experience for the guest.
And is that something as a planner? What is one of the things as a planner coming, and let's just use Savannah, when somebody calls you from Kansas and you're going to show around this weekend, are you going to say, hey, this is how a day can go? You have trolley rides, make sure you have great restaurants. Are you going to kind of plan also the guest experiences along with the couple's timeline? Is that something that you're finding yourself doing more and more of?
I haven't really thought about it, but yeah, absolutely. In that we, with some of the new hotels in Savannah too, we're really trying to put them at spaces that we think they'll really get that Savannah experience. And so that's definitely happening. I am seeing more of that.
Exactly. So we talked a little bit about how you got here. What is the ultimate favorite part of wedding planning for you? What is the number one thing that you love most about your job?
I just love the experience. I love being able to get to be such a part of just an intimate moment. Births and deaths and weddings, and those are some of the most special times of a person's life. And just that I get to be a part of that is so humbling. And so I get to the end of the night and I get to say congratulations to you guys. It's been such an honor getting to know you. And that's just one of my favorite things. So they've invited me to be included in that day.
Exactly. I remind everybody when I'm out speaking with the Knot or anywhere that I am, I remind everybody the privilege we have to serve in this industry. Because as you said, deaths are sad, births are happy, but on this one particular day, there could be 100 people that have come to celebrate you, and they put all the political stuff aside. They might be having a really bad day. Things might be bad. We don't know their stories, but on this day, everybody is so happy just to celebrate. And I have found that here in the South, it's also that, I'm away from my everyday life. I'm here. I can fully be engulfed and celebrate. And for us as wedding pros to be able to stand back and be witness to that, it's absolutely amazing. I love it. So now on the other side of that, what's the hardest part about what you do?
The hardest part, I would say, is, you have things on a wedding day that slip up. That you may end up having to build a floral arch, then you didn't really anticipate having to do that much floral design or something. There's just things that I end up getting pulled in different directions. Right. And so I always try to make sure that I've got at least an extra hour and a half. This past weekend, we ended up having like 2 hours extra kind of in the timeline, just hair and makeup got done 30 minutes early. That was awesome. Ceremony actually ran a little bit faster, and we got out of the Catholic Church faster than I thought we would. We got 15 extra minutes there. So, I try to build the timeline so that I would get extra pockets of time, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes extra here and there. Then that really helps alleviate me being pulled in so mmany different directions. Because the only thing that stresses me out on a wedding day is being short on time. I cannot stand that.
Exactly. Well, it gives everybody a chance to breathe. And then I feel that I think we as vendors, couples, and if not the couples, but the guests looking in, they look at us and go, why are you people rushing everybody? Why are you hurrying everybody along? And they don't realize that, well, the couple wants to be here, 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 and here. And if it's organized and done well, you don't see that it looks like a rush. But when somebody doesn't take the time like you to pat it, then it's going to look like we're running around with their heads cut off, because it's, oh my gosh, here, 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 here. So give us a couple tips on, I want to come to Savannah and I want to have a outdoor wedding. Do you like squares, riverfront, plantations? And then also tell us, I want to come to Savannah and have a church wedding. What are some of our options?
Yeah, so if for the squares, I love Chatham Square, just because you've got like two different sides of the square that has awesome trees, whether you want to be facing a tree or you just want to be nestled under all the trees. There's several that have, the gazebo at Whitfield Square is a great focal point. You don't have to have an arch if you've got the gazebo behind you, and you can just decorate that. There's one that has like a super low branch that basically would come right over the bride and groom's head if they got married in front of that branch. And you could just do your floral and your fabric swag right there, and not even have to rent a pergola or anything. So there's so many different options. Emmett Park has got, it's close to the water if you were going to do a ceremony or a reception at Vic's or something like that. But it's got that long park there, kind of like Forsyth, but not as far down.
And it's crowded.
Yeah. And because there's always going to be public at Forsyth Park that are going to be watching. It's not as intimate. But then we get so many people, as you know, a year that they have to get the fountain shot in their picture, because that's what they think of Savannah. It's like the pineapple in Charleston, Right. And then for churches, we've got everything from very small, older historic chapels out on Isle of Hope to Bethesda's Whitfield Chapel, which is one of my absolute favorites.
Mine too. I'm so glad they're doing weddings again. I love it there. Yeah.
Just to put a violin on that brick floor is one of my favorite things.
Yes.
And then we've got obviously some beautiful, beautiful chapels and just cathedrals here. Some of the Catholic churches are just lovely in Savannah. So there's so many options.
So give us a little bit about logistics, because as a planner, couples are listening and they come to you and they want to have this beautiful Chatham Square. What all is entailed on getting that to happen? And then I want to have all these florals and I want to have pews brought in to sit down. What are some of the logistics that people have to think about for getting chairs and getting things sit in if they want to really have this? Yeah. They want to take this church wedding and put it outside and have everything happen. Give us some of the logistics that you guys have to deal with.
Yeah. So one of the things that I do for my brides is, you can only see so much online. If you really want to experience it, you need to be there. And if we're talking logistics and you're not in Savannah and you can't be there, then I'm going to drive to Savannah and I'm going to literally roll my window down and drive around the square and take a video so that you can see a 360 of what the square looks like and what the road noise is, because there's traffic going around and everything, and there's people walking. And I want you to see at any given day, like, this is what it is. It's a public park. And so if you want to reserve it, these are the permits. These are the fees depending on the day of the week and whether it's a residential area or not. And this is how much parking there is. And you need 2 box trucks to get all your rentals in here. And this is what it's going to cost you to rent this many metered spots. And, they just don't understand all of that. And then you want to shuttle your guests, because a lot of brides say, I want my guests to fly into Savannah, and then once they get over to the hotel, I don't want them to drive. I don't want anybody to rent cars, which is awesome. Savannah's super walkable. We all know that. And so nobody really needs cars if you're going to keep everything in the historic district. But maybe you still want that trolley. Well, trolleys can only park at designated trolley stops in the historic district, or they get fined like anybody else. And so a lot of brides don't know, you book an Airbnb and your trolley might not can park right outside of your Airbnb. You may have to walk 2 blocks
exactly
to the trolley stop. And so it's little things like that I think they need help just kind of understanding, like, there are guidelines for the city of Savannah. It is a historic city, and preservation and all of that goes into play on everyday life here.
And so that leads us to the point of another reason why you're having a destination wedding in Savannah. You have to have a planner. That brings us to the price structure. One of the things that I hear all the time is, I can't afford a planner. I want to say you can't afford not to have one. We all know the phrase, if you think something's expensive, try doing it amateur-wise and see how expensive it really is. So when we talk about pricing structures and some of the things that you offer, are you fine lining all this? Or are you saying, if you're going to get married in this square, this is what my rate's going to be, and you build in that cushion to help couples because of all these little things that happen? Because I don't think people realize you still have to have permits. So tell us a little bit about, do you get pushback from that? Do people say, oh my gosh, I'm not paying for that, or that's why it's expensive? How do you manage those clients' expectations when it comes to pricing your services?
Yeah, I pretty much have like package pricing. Now I do customize based on sometimes the venue, sometimes the day of, like kind of timeline, how they want things to run. If I think I'm going to need an extra person or not, then I'll add in extra staffing. Very rarely do I have to break it down like hourly or things like that. But if I need to explain it to them that way, then it helps to explain it to them.
Right.
And then trying to think what your other question was.
Well, but what I do is I think that if sometimes if you say this is just what it is, and let's just say, oh my God, you want me to spend $20,000 on wedding planning, they don't get that. But when you sit down and go, okay, your permit's $500, you have to have 2 box trucks, like you said, then they can see that and go, okay, wow, now I know why planners have the rates that they have, because without you getting all of us there and organizing all of us, we can't do our jobs and they can't do they can't have a stress-free wedding. So that's why I was just curious if you ever got kickback or pushback. Oh my God, that's expensive. And they want to know why. And you're able to tell them why.
Yeah, I really don't get much pushback on my prices. And I've even gone up on them this year and have continued to steadily book since going up. So I think my prices right now are very reasonable, probably on the low end for Savannah, really. So we'll see how booking continues to go. They may have to rise again just to keep up. But I actually had a bride last weekend from the Midwest, and she was the youngest of 3 girls to get married. And she said both of my older sisters had destination weddings. One of them was in Charleston, and we just love vacationing here. And she said, when I started to think about where I wanted my wedding to be, her husband was a golf pro. And so she said it had to be slow season for him. So we were looking winter. We obviously don't want to get married in the winter where we live.
Right.
So we brought it back south. And she said neither one of my sisters had a coordinator or a planner or anybody. And she said one of the things my parents said this morning was, like, I literally basically became their tour guide for the weekend. I mean, whatever they needed, I did, was there for them, ran errands for them, picked up things for them. And when I showed up to the hotel where all the girls were getting ready Saturday morning, I said, do y'all need anything? You know, how's the morning been going? They said, we just want coffee. And we asked downstairs if they could bring us a carafe of coffee, and the staff didn't for whatever reason. And so I went downstairs and I played barista, you know, and brought coffee up to their room. And so it's whatever the client needs. I mean, that's what I'm here for.
Right.
And once I service what your individual needs are, then I'm going to go start taking care of your day. And she just continued to say, you know, I did every bit of their setup. I did every bit of their vendor negotiations and conversations. And at the end of the day, I did every bit of their breakdown to the point where I put their personal items on a cart and they carted it up to their room, and the dad brought the cart back down to the bell stand, and that was it. And she said my parents did not see until the 3rd time planning a wedding that this is what all a wedding planner does. She said, you did everything. We literally showed up. We did nothing.
You pretty much covered the other 2 sisters' weddings all within the one wedding. And I trust me, any of the grandchildren will have a wedding planner. You know, that's how they, that's your Southern hospitality though. That is your roots. That's your heart. That's your core. And you're not going to change that. And that's how you're going to be. Are there apps that make your job easier? Or is there something you can't live without as a planner?
Probably the apps I use are the same as pretty much anybody else. I do work probably 75% of my time from my cell phone though. So just email, Facebook, Instagram. I'm pretty new to the QuickBooks app.
Right.
I'm still trying to figure that out, but so that's more of a business owner thing. But yeah, probably the same apps that a lot of people use. Some of my international brides use the WhatsApp.
I was going to say, international brides, how are you communicating with them? How are you communicating with your international couples? And how, if it's Skype or Zoom, and also, are you that planner that is okay with texting? I mean, I personally like the texting back and forth. So how do you feel about that communication with your couples?
Yeah, I'm open to any form of communication. And, you know, some of my brides are business owners themselves, and restaurant owners, and they're like, my days are super busy too. So I say, you know what, I work from home, and my schedule's flexible. I can talk early morning, late at night. I can do phone calls. I can do text, whatever is easiest for you. If you need to tell me something or you have a change you want to make, send me an email, call me, leave me a voicemail. A lot of my international brides, though, are just either email or I would say mostly email, but sometimes WhatsApp or Zoom for them.
Gotcha. And is that one of your tips for any couple listening? What's like 5 good tips for couples that are planning a wedding? What are 5 tips you can give them that they should really do, not necessarily in the order, but 5 tips that you can give couples to set themselves up for a successful wedding day?
Yeah. So number 1, hire a planner.
Amen.
Number 2 is make a budget, like a legit budget, categorize it and give it to your planner and say, is this realistic? You need to look at that budget. Also, is it realistic in the town? Because, you know, vendor pricing changes and is different by location and even by city to city. And so, you know, you could pull a budget, say, off of the knot.com, but it's not made for Savannah. And so I had a bride give me one recently, and I sent it back to her, and I said, these are my edits based on this region and our state and our town. So you need to have somebody look at that for you. Number 3 is right now, greenery is really big in floral design. And, you know, we're getting so much more. I'm seeing a lot of brides this year say, I want a lot of greenery on my tables, garlands, big arrangements and things like that. And they think that they're saving because they're not having flowers, but greenery actually can be more expensive than flowers. And I don't think that they understand that. Because when you have to wire a whole lot of things together, we know that that's a lot of time consuming for a florist. And so just little tidbits like that is, you know, you can actually have flowers and it be cheaper than greenery.
Right.
Another one, let's see, what would be another tip?
How do you feel about the trends? Do you think they should follow trends or be their own person or do a combination?
I think you should be your own person. I really do. I think, you know, every vendor's different. Every business and organization is different, and brides are the same. You know, don't look at what all Pinterest is doing and what people are saving. You know, take that and make it your own. And that is what creates the trends. You know, if more people see newer things, newer ideas being done because of a bride's creativity, then other brides play off of that. But if everybody does the same thing, then where do brides pull inspiration from? New inspiration.
Exactly. Well, I remind everybody, even on the business side of it, you know, don't try to compare yourself to everybody's 9 squares. I mean, you can sit back and look at other wedding planners and they follow you and you follow them and they look like they're doing 900 weddings a year. You know, we have to remember that it's not necessarily that's the case. And it's same when these couples are looking at Pinterest or when couples are looking at all the vendors. You know, sometimes what you're looking at might be a style shoot and it's unrealistic. So, you know, couples that are listening, you know, I just need you guys to remember that, you know, following the 9 squares is not, there's always a story behind the 9 squares. So on the trends, is there something that you really are loving a trend? And what are some trends that you wish would just really go away?
I actually really like the mixed metals. And just like I've got some black weddings this year. I love that. I don't get a lot of black florals and black weddings, and in a way, it's kind of going back to the tradition with traditional black and white
Right.
tuxes. And so I like that. I like it being paired with all the mixed metals and things. That's really unique. I have never really been a huge fan of real rustic weddings. So I have thought that barns would kind of be on the way out, but I still see a lot of barn weddings. So I don't know how long they're going to stick around, but
Right.
to each their own.
Well, I think it's because we have so many venues here. I think people realize, okay, I go to Savannah or the coast and I can have a real high end kind of going to your Ritz portion of your business name, or I can go in the middle of Georgia and find that barn.
Right.
How did you come up with Rustic to Ritz? What's the meaning behind the name of your business?
Yeah, just because I have events that are on both extremes.
Exactly.
And so when I first got started, I was doing a lot of those like low end weddings. So maybe it was a little bit more rustic. And now that I've been booking some higher end brides and higher end weddings, then I'm doing a little bit more of the Ritz side. But just letting brides know that we do both. I mean, we can pretty much make your day whatever your day wants, whatever you want your day to be. And it's all about you and your style and your individuality. And that's what we excel at. So
Exactly.
we do both and everything in between.
And you're in a perfect location to do that. So we talked a little bit about the business part, and I know you spoke a little bit about your family earlier. What do you do? Now we're getting ready to be in peak wedding season. What do you do to balance that life-work balance? What is it that you do stepping away, taking a weekend off? How do you and your husband deal with that as a family?
Yeah, so used to, I would pretty much, if I had an open weekend, I was willing to put a wedding on it. And now that our boys are old enough to be in baseball and we have birthday parties and everything else, then, we've really had to say, like, there's certain weekends that I need to just put on my calendar way far in advance that this is going to be a family day, or a family weekend, or, we used to really not even book vacations. We would just kind of go on a spur of the moment vacation if I didn't have a wedding, or my husband works weekends too. So if he was off a weekend, we just kind of do a spur of the moment trip. And now we've really had to plan that time ahead to make sure that we're spending an adequate amount of family time together too. And we're not getting burnt out.
Well, yeah, because as the boys grow, and you know that in this industry, it's really hard to say no to money. I mean, we all know it's really hard. No is not a bad word in business, but I think for those of us that are passionate like you, we want to be of service to these people. So, man, I fall in love with people's stories. And as soon as I say I'm not going to take another wedding, I ask somebody their story and I'm like, I want to be a part of it, right? We all know that. Yeah. So I'm like you. I mark off. I take the year and go, no, I know for sure I want to go visit here. I want to go do that. And then when somebody comes along, it's hard. So, and we don't have any kids. So with you guys, as your kids get older, you don't want your kids going, oh my gosh, I'm totally missing. My mom is not here to watch me hit my first home run because she's helping somebody walk down the aisle. And, we can't get so busy living our own, doing our work that we forget to tell our own story. So, that's one of the things that I think is great. Are the boys, when they get of age, can you see the boys helping in the business, like coming and doing things? Is that something you think is kind of fun?
Yeah, I think so. I have told my husband I'm going to get them valeting cars one day. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you get the venue, they're going to be wishing they did not have a parent that had a venue because they'll be working every single weekend. That is cool. So what do you think you're going to be in 3 years? What's the goal for you personally, maybe, or for your company in the next 3 years? Where do you think you want to see yourself grow or be?
Yeah. In the next 3 years, I would love to have 5 employees, maybe 5 other coordinators. And I'd also love for us to own property. It might not have a venue on it yet.
Right.
Have a piece of property and be starting to make those plans for the future. I would love to be there.
And I think you'll get there for sure. So what's a tip? What's a tip for the listeners that are coming? Susie's going to plan her sister's wedding this year. What can you tell Susie? She's listened on this whole podcast and she's got some tidbits, but some final thoughts on what you need to know if you want to own your own business and be a creative entrepreneur, and just some of the things you need to understand that might happen and might not happen. So what pieces of advice can you give somebody who wants to break into wedding planning in the wedding industry?
Yeah, I think if you want to be in this industry, then you've got to have the experience. And so if you don't have the experience, find somewhere where you can intern, even if it's for free. And you say, can I just come shadow this wedding for you and be an extra set of hands? You don't even have to pay me. I just want to see the flow of the day and how things work. After you've done that, then try to find a job in the industry, because that experience, being able to shadow some, is going to give you some experience to maybe get a starter position somewhere, or at least you have that little bit of experience to share in an interview. But be willing to get your hands dirty, because this is not an easy business. Our days are really long, and I tell brides straight up, like, a wedding day for me is typically 10 to 12 hours. And so I'm going to show up at this time because your reception ends at this time. So it is a long day, and you're going to be on your feet. And so be ready for that.
And that's just the day of. That's not the hours before. That's not talking 4 or 5 times. And that's also the day of in Southern Savannah humidity and heat.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is something that, this is not a glamorous job. I mean, you guys change clothes sometimes 3 times a day, because you start off in one work clothes, then you change for the ceremony part. And quite often you guys are changing for the reception because you're still doing things behind the scenes. So I think that's a very valuable, point for people to know, and again, it's like, I want people to understand that how wedding planners are vital to the wedding day. And I don't preach a lot of things, but it's one of the things that, I kind of tell people that if you're not going to have a planner, then I might not be the photographer for you. For the simple fact of, I want to invest in you, and I want to invest in your, day. And in all honesty, this is a way that you can you set yourself up for success. We've said it several times in this podcast interview. But, I just want people to know, and I am so, so excited to get to work with you in September. I cannot wait. And I hope that, I hope with the way that you process and bring brides, you're going to bring some more our way. I'm so excited for that. And before we leave, tell us 3 things that you hope other vendors think about you and other couples think about you. Just 3 things that you hope that they think about you, say about you, and what you want to leave them with.
Yeah. One thing is that I just love people. And so I get along with pretty much any personality, and I would just love for them to see, like, Anna's just really a people person and just really makes people feel comfortable in their own skin wherever they are, whatever the situation. And 2, that I'm really calm. I don't have a lot of anxiety. I don't get upset. And so that I've had so many brides and other vendors comment on that you are just seem to be real easygoing and just calm. And so that's a huge thing on a wedding day, is you really want a planner that's calm and not stressed out.
Exactly. Voice of reason.
And 3rd, that I just love what I do, that I just am so passionate about this, that I want your day to be perfect, and that I want you to know that I would find the vendors that are going to make your day perfect. And that's going to save you hours and hours and hours of research, because I already have those relationships with those people.
Exactly. And that's what goes back to when I say, if you think you have a budget and you don't think you can afford a planner already knows us. A planner can come to us. And while we live in a world where everybody thinks it's okay to ask for discounts, I mean, let's face it, we just live in a world where people, I mean, even when you go to McDonald's, is, can I get something else? We all do this. It's one thing when a planner comes to us and you come to me and say, hey, Bobby, I have this couple that is on this really, really tight budget. I will find a way to be able to work with that budget out of respect of wanting to work with you. And couples need to understand that is a role, and that is a superpower that planners can have. They've built this relationship with venues, and you think you can walk in the door and go, hey, I'll get $10,000 off. You're not going to get that on your own. A planner probably can't get that, but a planner can get you sometimes lots of things that will add up to add value to what you're doing. And I think that's just a thing that couples forget that planners can do. So they can, while I hate to say save you money, they can definitely help with your budget and make it go further. So
yeah, that's true.
I thank you so much for spending, and I'll add another thing about you is absolutely that you're Fabbo. And again, it's such an honor to spend some time with you and get to know you. I get to know you a little bit through Instagram, and everybody, you got to follow her along. Remind everybody where they can find you, all your social media, wherever you are. Tell everybody all those handles for us.
Yeah, it's Rustic to Ritz Events, and you can find us on Instagram, Rustic to Ritz Events, or Facebook, Rustic to Ritz Events, and our website is rustic2ritz.com.
And I want to thank you, listeners, for joining us on this, National Wedding Planning Day. Hope you picked up some tips for Anna. And everybody, if you're coming to Savannah, you all know that this is a planner you need to reach out to. She gave you her Instagram. Reach out to her on DM. Follow along. You won't be sad that she is there to make your day wonderful and fabulous. So thanks for spending time with us today. Everybody, we'll see you again later. Tina's going to have everything she talked about in the show notes. Remember, you can reach out to me at BobbiBrinkman@gmail.com for some more information. Follow along on BeFabbo Podcast.com. And I can't wait for you guys to hear this episode when we get all finished with it. It'll be coming to you a little bit in a few weeks. So be on the lookout for that. Again, Anna, thanks so much for joining us, and I will see you soon.
Thank you. See ya.
Thanks for joining us. We hope these conversations will take you into your wedding weekend with a little more confidence, proud of what you do, and how you serve your clients. Maybe you even picked up a business tip or two. Till next time, be Fabbo.